Today is the 16th. It's 1900th hour. Man, what a crazy world we live in right now, right? I'm going to be kind of careful. I choose my words, otherwise YouTube will remove this, but I doubt it because there's like 240 people on my YouTube channel and 13 people watch these videos, so what do we got to lose, right? I had COVID last May, not this past May, but it was a year previous. I've had 3 antibody tests. The last time I had an antibody test was a week ago. Was a year ago this week. I have 2 more eye surgeries that I have to have still, and I'm going to be tested for for this lovely malady. I'll have antibodies that are tested. I'll be tested for antibodies again when this goes on. I'm really interested to see if I still have them. So there was a story out this week, a study, 2 places, one in Michigan, one out of Michigan, the other one out of Israel. In case you didn't know, Israel has like a 95 or 90% vaccination rate. And yet their numbers of this malady are surging. Why is that? Makes you wonder, right? But there was a study out of Israel recently, and like I said, out of Michigan as well, that's showing that people who had this disease have a 13 to 20% greater immune response, greater protection than somebody that gets the jib. I want you to think about that. The idea of getting a jib is to make you immune to a disease, right? If you already had it like I did, I have a 13 to 20% greater protection than somebody that gets vaccinated. That's the truth. Look that information up. It's there. It's out. So why would somebody like me have to take the jib in order to buy, sell, and trade? You know, it's funny. The world in itself, it doesn't pay attention to history. It doesn't pay attention to anything that's remotely religious or what they can, this whole thing, it's never been about the disease so much as it's been about getting stuck. And it's about to see how far they can push a free people into compliance. And that's really what it's about. Because if they can push you into compliance with this, they can push you into compliance with anything. So it had me thinking that history repeats itself. There are shadows of things to come and shadows of the past at the same time. What do I mean by this? Well, when Hitler came to power and he took power legally, the power is given to him legally by Kaiser Wilhelm. And it was because the Reichstag building in Germany was burned to the ground by a so-called communist sympathizer. And they had a big show trial about it. And everybody in Germany was terrified because the communists were at their door. So Hitler promised to do something about it. With me in charge, so he had Wilhelm give him emergency powers that he never relinquished. Once Hitler, who was no longer chancellor, he became the dictator. He became the ruler of that country. And look what happened. So what do I want to say? Well, it was interesting. Nobody really did anything. I know the Jews were just, Jewish Germans were just running around enjoying their lives, doing what they're doing, and the next thing you know, they get labeled as enemies of the state. And what happened? What's the first thing they do to them? Well, they got to make sure that they mark their businesses. These are Jewish businesses, so everybody knows the businesses. And then they shut the businesses down. And then what do? Is they put a mark on them, the yellow Star of David, to show the world who they are when they're walking down the street. They put a mark on them so they could not buy, sell, or trade. Does that sound familiar to you? Anybody that is familiar with Christian texts, biblical texts, New Testament texts, is that familiar to you at all? Should be. How did it end up? Well, I think we all know how that ended up. Eventually the yellow star, and eventually you disappeared in the middle of the night. Eventually you were rounded up, and eventually you were sent to camps and gas chambers. You don't see the parallels of what's going on here with the old jib? If you don't get it, it's already going on. In New York, you need to have your papers. You have to have your passport papers to show that you've been vaccinated and you are no longer a threat to the Reich. Really start looking at it, folks. Start paying attention to what's going on. It's just a shadow of what is supposed to come. You got to pay attention to this stuff. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take it so you can buy, sell, and trade? Or are you going to stand up? Are you going to stand up to this stuff? Because there comes a time, if you don't say anything, if you don't stand up, because you're going to end up getting that yellow star. The yellow star is already here. Next thing you know, you're going to be loaded up into cattle cars. Oh, that's never going to happen. Really? Really? You don't think the humanity today isn't what it was 75 years ago? You think we've evolved past that? That primitive reptilian part of our brain that wants to kill each other, that's still there? Huh? You think we're so much more enlightened because we're 75 years removed out of barbarity? You are wrong. The right set of circumstances will pit neighbor against neighbor. They're already doing it. Turn in your neighbors. Turn in your neighbors. Are you harboring Jews? Because that's what they did. Turned in neighbors. Family members turned on each other. Secret police. Like any totalitarian, authoritative government, they all do the same thing. There's always a segment that's brainwashed by the government and are willing to turn their neighbors and their relatives and their families in. You don't see this already? Pay attention to that whole woke cancel culture bullshit. You don't think that's what it's about? You don't see them doing that already? That's just a shadow. It's just a type and shadow of what's to come in the future. Now, I personally don't think this is the end of time, but it's a foreshadowing of what is going to come if people don't stand up. And this is what I'm talking about, and it starts in the church. You got two types of people in the church, maybe three. You got those that are on fire, you got those that are cold, and you got those that are lukewarm. I like to think I'm on fire, but you know what? When push comes to shove, we'll see who's really on fire or not. Who's willing to stand up? Who's willing to bite the bullet? Who's ready to pay a price? Because you're going to have some that are willing to stand for and pay a price. You're going to have some that slink back in the shadows, and you're going to have some that are going to do what they're told. And you're going to have somewhere along the line, you got to stand up. This isn't a black and white issue. This isn't a racial issue. None of this is. But if you don't see what's going on in our government, if you don't see what is going on with the leadership that we have now, Trump was the bad guy, remember? Trump was the dictator. Trump was the one that was, mandating. Trump was the one that was supposed to be the dictator. You don't see the actions. You know, there's an old saying that actions speak louder than words. We had a so-called president the other day that says, my patience is growing thin with the unvaccinated. Think about that. That's a separation between us and them. So it begins when the highest office of the land is held by a man that says something like us and them. Remember, Trump was the racist. What's this thing? What's this guy? Open your eyes. Open your eyes to what's going on and take a stand, because it's coming. How long is it going to be before you get a knock at the door and they say, yeah, we need to see your papers? You have relatives in Berlin? What is the nature of your business here? What are you doing? It's coming, folks. They're already using OSHA. Biden the other day, with his crazy-ass announcement, is using OSHA to enforce workplaces to make people get the jib. I have a real simple thing to say to you. If someone has the nerve to come up to you and say, are you vaccinated? You should say to them, for what? And if they tell you what, then you should say, are you vaccinated against typhoid? See what they say to you, because you know what? Typhoid is about 100 times more deadly than what's going on here. So you should ask them, well, what are you vaccinated for? Are you vaccinated for typhoid? When is it somebody else's business about what type of health care you choose for your own body? What type of health care do you choose? Do you want to go an all-natural supplemental way to deal with whatever you're dealing with? Cancer, sore throat? Do you want to go to chiropractor instead of going for back surgery? Whose business is it? It's your business. How you treat yourself and how you deal with your own health care. Your own, how you take care of yourself for your own health. Do you have people knocking on your door saying, man, you should be eating all those donuts? It's not good for you. You shouldn't have a diet high in fat. It's not good for you. This is what's coming. There comes a time where you have to stand up. This is a real simple test for government overreach. If you don't see this, if you can't open up your eyes and see what's going on, you are beyond any help. You are beyond any help. And I'm going to say this to some of the most educated people that I know who may be seeing this. Don't be an educated fool. Just because you went and got a PhD, a doctorate, whatever you got your PhD in, whatever you got your bachelor's or your master's in, it don't mean shit. Just because you studied something so long and hard enough and you passed a bunch of tests and they give you a degree after your name, doesn't mean you have an ounce of common sense. And the truth be told, the most ridiculous human beings I have met in my life, have been pretty much the most highly educated. They think they have all the answers, they think they know everything, and they're all so wise in their own eyes. I keep saying, be a critical thinker. Don't believe everything you say. Examine everything that they are trying to spoon feed you. And don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe everything you see. Don't believe everything you read. Read lots of stuff. Go and look and purposely look for things that are opposing what they're telling you and make your own conclusions. But if you honestly think that the governments of this world have your best interest at heart, you are sadly mistaken. Because the goal has always been a one world government, a one world currency, and it's all about control. And this has been going on since humans started a civilization. Ultimate control by a handful of people or by one person. And we are no different than we are 2,000 years ago when you had Rome calling the shots. Be a critical thinker and stop letting the media brainwash your sorry ass. Till next time.